Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Muslimah. I'm your host Zara Pedersen, and today I'm going to talk about something that I think we can all relate to in one aspect or another. I'm going to obviously talk about this within the realm of law of attraction, and you may also find yourself in that position as well, or it could be in regards to something else, and that is information overload. Just having far too many people throw information at you at one time and not really being able to do very much with it, or at least feel like you still need to learn more, or that there's something that you still need to understand, or you need to hear it from another perspective in order for you to do something with it. And it's a very common problem. And as I said, it's not just within the law of attraction world. This is also in any other self-help or any motivation, inspiration, anything kind of industry. Because we live in a day right now or in a time where, we cannot open any apps on our phones anymore without being educated on something. Whether we choose to follow people who want to educate us because we've got an interest in the subject that they're speaking on, or simply because we're just scrolling, or we just saw an interesting picture and we started reading the caption or whatever, there'll always be something about like, oh, here's how you avoid this, here's how you can get better at that, here's how to become this person, here's how to do this, here's how to do that. Oh my God. Listen, and I say this as a person who's also contributing to all of this information content out there. I'm another coach, just like everybody else, who's trying to get eyes on my content and get eyes and hopefully buyers to my content, and, trying to make a living and trying to survive doing these things. And so there's nothing, wrong with that necessarily. The problem is when we as consumers can no longer figure out who to follow, what to do, and we feel almost numb to all the information at some point, that we feel like we can't actually take action on it because there's just so much for us that we feel like we have to do or we have to remember. And in the end, we end up not doing anything. And I can speak on both behalves, by the way, because I'm not just a creator of content. I'm also a consumer. I'm on social media just as much as the next person, perhaps even more, because I am a creator on several platforms at this point, which means that I'm also trying to stay up to date with what everybody else is doing, what's the trends, what hashtag should I follow, what's the algorithm like. And so I'm just as much scrolling as everybody else. And one of the problems with it as well for me has been, that information overload, like not being able to figure out, well, which information am I going to take and run with? Which one of them am I going to implement? Because all of them seem so very important. And listen, I can tell you this, from being a content creator myself, I will 100% put emphasis on everything that I say, because to the right person, it'll be the right information at the right time, right? And so I'm not going to downplay any of my information, but I'm also not, like, my content is not also going to be relevant for everyone at the same time. But that doesn't mean that the urgency in the message isn't the same when I'm publishing it and when I'm putting it out there. So I'm always going to be like, this is what you need to do to X, Y, and Z, or are you making this mistake? Then do this. Or, we're all going through the same content, and we're all going through, especially over on TikTok, I can say, because that's where my largest audience is and where I spend most of my time, is that there's so much competition for what's it called, to get people's attention. There's so much competition for that. People don't they say you have like less than 3 seconds to get a person's attention, right? So you need to do all these things. And so everybody on there is, competing for this attention from the consumers. And, I'm one of them too, right? But it is overwhelming, because how are you then, as the consumer of all this content, going to know when to apply certain things, when it's relevant to you, and when you need to take a step back? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of backstory. Oh, sorry, I just completely knocked my table, and I'm sorry if you heard that. But so I'm going to just tell you a little bit first about how I've experienced it, and then I'm going to give you what sort of like you can do to take these actionable steps, because I now, having done a lot of work on myself, and over the years having been a content creator now for at least 10 years, like actively content creator for 10 years, I've been within the social media world for a very long time, and I've been a consumer for a very long time. And especially when I started out, when it came to, the law of attraction and wanting to understand the law of attraction better and better and better, I was a massive consumer of content around the law of attraction, and I was following everyone who sounded like they knew what they were doing. I was following Tom, Dick, and Harry and their cousins. Like, I didn't care. As long as you gave me some type of value, or I deemed what you were saying to be somewhat valuable to me, or fitting in with something that I felt like, yeah, I heard that before, so you possibly will know what you're talking about. So I'm just going to follow you, and maybe one day you're going to post something that's going to be super relevant to me and be the thing that makes everything flip on its head and make sense for me. And instead, what happened was information overload. I was getting so much information about law of attraction from podcasts, from books, from Instagram. It was at the time, in Facebook. I was getting it, from everywhere. And I was buying, books from Audible and listening to them while I was at the gym, when I was taking my dog for a walk. I was inundated with information. And yet I never, I took action, but I could never really seem to get the results that I wanted, because I was so confused in the end. I was so confused as to what information was relevant to me and when I had to start applying it. And that's the problem. That's literally the problem that happens when we have all of this information. And I'm sure if you're looking through, or maybe not you, but like the majority of us, can look through the people that we follow on various social medias, and we'll find that we're not just following one person within this subject that we're interested in. We will follow maybe 3, 5, 10, 20 people. I actually had a client once who said, that she was only on Instagram to follow fitness coaches and stuff like that. And she was following like 200 people. And each one of them claimed to be, the expert, the one who was going to give her the goals. Meanwhile, she was coming to me. At the time, I was a fitness coach. Meanwhile, she was coming to me and training with me, and I was telling her something. And then she was like, oh, but actually somebody that I don't really know and I don't really trust in that way, because I'm working with you, and they said this and that and the other. And I was like, well, you have to choose one. Like, you can't trust everyone at the same time. And it's also making it much more difficult, or did at the time, for me to coach her, because she was following everyone and she was getting so many conflicted messages. And instead of just trusting one and following that one person that reflected more of her values, she just decided, I'm just going to follow everyone, and eventually one of them is going to save my life, I assume. And after we had like a long chat about it, she went down and she like culled everything on her Instagram followers, like who she was following, and she went down to like 10, 20 people or something like that. And that's still quite a lot of people, but still, it's whatever. You can follow however many you want. But the point that I'm trying to get across is that you end up getting this information overload, and you'll end up hearing contradictory information quite often. Or, they'll use different words or different ways of putting sentences together that makes it feel like it's contradicting, even if it's not at the very base level of things. But that's what can happen when we're following everyone. And again, as I said, if it's not you, then maybe a friend who's doing this and they're getting information from so many places, but ultimately they're numb. They don't know what to do. So they end up not taking any action at all, even though they have so much information, and in truth, they should be able to go out and do the things that they are listening to every day from all these experts. So let's talk about what you can actually do in this case. If you find yourself, whether it be within the law of attraction or fitness influence or anything else, I would highly recommend that you go in and you cull everything. Like, go in, look at everybody that you're following, the people's content that you're consuming, whether or not it's like, oh, I'm actually not following this person, but I'm constantly checking in on their podcast, or I'm constantly checking in when I see that they've uploaded a new video on TikTok, because especially on TikTok, you'll still get people, even if you're not following them, because they'll check how long you've been watching their videos for. But go in and clear it out, declutter, because you don't need to be following that many. And I can assure you that just having one or two people, or depending on how many you have now, like literally one or two people, maybe even 3, if you feel like they're giving you something different and each one of them are valuable. But you can actually get rid of quite a lot of them, because you'll find that 1 or 2 of those people, 9 times out of 10, are the ones whose content reflect what you're going through right now the most, or they are similar in value or morals, or one thing for myself, and the reason why I've put myself out as a Muslim law of attraction coach is because I, for one, understand that my religion changes drastically how I view law of attraction and how I put it into practice. And so I've stopped following, a lot of the generic mainstream law of attraction coaches because I don't. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. She's so annoying. It has to happen. I'm so sorry if that scared you as well. 1 minute. I'm just going to get her to shut up if I can. I probably can't. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Anyway, where was I? What was I saying? Yes, here was. I didn't appreciate the amount of shirk that I was listening to. People and the ordinary level, or like the normalcy. That's the word I'm looking for. The normalcy in saying stuff like, "I am a goddess. I am the creator of my universe," and like stuff like that. And it was just such a normal thing. At some point, it became such a normal thing in my everyday life to listen to people speaking like that it no longer, it didn't have that effect on me where I was like, ew, that's actually really gross. Like, as a Muslim woman who believes in one God, one deity, and, me being a servant of this deity, I'm certainly not going to listen to people who genuinely will say things like, I am God, I am goddess. Astaghfirullah, like, I'm sorry, but it's literally like, and it was just ordinary to me because they had other information about the law of attraction that I thought was interesting, or they led the lifestyle that I thought, wow, they really have it, like they must know what they're talking about. But so I had to go in and make a massive call, and I suggest you do the same. Go in, unfollow anyone who has anything that makes you kind of cringe a little bit, because chances are that little bit of cringe or that little bit of discomfort is probably not going to serve you in the long run, because while they might know what they're doing in other places, there's still going to be a little bit of uncertainty as to whether or not you're actually doing it in alignment with your morals and values and beliefs. The next thing that I will say is start implementing. Instead of just watching, maybe put some of these people on pause. Even if it's me, by the way, like I'm not saying this just like, oh, just only follow me. Even if this is me and I'm talking about myself in your world, please unfollow, please. Like, I don't want to be the person who's giving you this information overload and making you feel overwhelmed. That is not my purpose. And I'd rather have 3 followers than 3,000 followers, but those 3 followers are genuinely connecting and relating and using and implementing the things that I'm teaching them, rather than 3,000 followers who are just feeling inundated with information and don't know how to implement and take action on it. So even if I'm talking about myself, cold, declutter me, pause me if you need to, so that you can go and implement some of the teachings and the information instead. This is where it, like, the magic happens. It doesn't happen by you just constantly listening to everything that I or other coaches have to say. You have to go out and implement it. And a lot of us coaches, I can speak for myself and then like a handful of other people, they give so much information. I have given so much information, probably all information. Yeah, hi. Probably all the information that I have. Well, there's still, like, I can answer questions and things and I can go into details, but I've given enough for everyone to be able to get started. That's for damn sure. So implement some of these things. You don't have to implement all of it at the same time. Again, information overload. Just choose one thing to start with and then work your way up there. But start implementing some of these things that the coaches are telling you after you've done the culling, so that you, again, don't have all these contradictory informations or advice or whatever it is, and that you don't feel, overwhelmed by it. And the last thing I'm going to recommend is to get the help that you need as well. Don't think that you have to do it on your own. If it feels impossible for you to plan it out, or if it feels impossible for you to figure out where to start or whatever, then seek out one of the coaches. People have books, they've got courses, they've got one-to-one training. Seek out the help that you need to get yourself started. Investing in yourself is never going to be money that's going to feel missed or like, wasted. It's going to be something that is going to benefit you in the long run. I can speak on this, I've seen my therapist for years now. Years. Like, I'm not joking when I say that, once a week for years. And it's a massive investment financially, but it's been such a beautiful investment within myself as a person, in my mental health, in my emotional well-being, in my ability to adjust and to restart and understand what's going on in my head. And yeah, it can be expensive, and sometimes you're like, oh, do I really have the money for this? And then you're like, actually, yes. And this is where I want to invest my money, because I want to invest in myself, because ultimately I believe that I can and will do better. And I can't do that all the time on my own. Trust me, like, I want to do everything on my own. Like, I'm one of those people, but I know that I can't. And so when I need to, I will 100% get a coach. I've had several coaches. I've had one therapist. I've got the same therapist. I've bought several e-courses, several books, all of these things, because I believe that there's so much to be learned also in not just feeling like you have to do it all by yourself, especially when there's somebody out there who can do it so much better and get you started so much better. So those are my little tips for you if you find yourself in this information overload place as well right now. Declutter, cull. Don't follow everyone just because they made one video that resonated. Be a little bit more discerning about who you follow. Make sure that they also have the same values and morals and belief systems as you, so that you're actually following someone that you feel good about following, that you can relate to and can relate back to you. Start implementing some of these things. Don't just let this information go to wasted. Yeah, knowledge is great, but knowledge without using it is powerless. How to say knowledge is power? Yeah, it's kind of not. Knowledge is not power. A lot of people know a lot of stuff, but they don't do anything with it. Knowledge without implementation is just ideas in your head, ultimately. So go out and implement. Start doing the things so that you can start reaping the benefits of all the knowledge that you actually have, and start building the life that you really want. And lastly, get the help when you need it. Get the coaches, get the therapists, get the courses, get the books, all of these things. It is so helpful in the long run. And it's also helpful for you not to think like you have to do it all by yourself and figure it all out on your own, because you definitely don't have to do that if it's not necessary. And let me tell you, it's not always necessary. Anyway, I hope there was something beneficial for you in today's episode. Thank you so much for joining today. If you've got any questions or would like to reach out or anything like that, then please hit me up over on my socials. Instagram, please don't, not on TikTok, because I love the voice message thing on Instagram, and TikTok doesn't have it, at Manifesting Muslima, and I'll get back to you over there. But until then, my darling friend, please don't forget to live in love.